It's actually indeed my pleasure to introduce Dr. Robert Schneider, who's an internationally recognized physician, scientist, educator, and a leader in mind-body integrative medicine. He's a professor and director of the Institute for Natural Medicine and Prevention and Dean of the College of Integrative Medicine at Maharishi International University in Fairfield, Iowa. He's also the author of Total Heart Health, a leading authority on the Maharishi Ayurvedic approach to health. And Dr. Schneider is today going to talk about the promise of a holistic paradigm for Ayurveda research. Welcome, Dr. Schneider.
Thank you, Dr. Mahadevan. It's a pleasure to be here today with this group. And can everyone see my slides all right?
Yes.
The topic that I'd like to discuss today with this Council for Ayurveda Research is going beyond herbal medicine to a holistic model for Ayurveda research. This holistic model is actually based on the original texts of Ayurveda. For example, Charak talked about the three pillars, mind, body, and Atma. Well, what happened to Atma and mind in contemporary Ayurveda research? We spend so much time on the body, which is certainly there, but 1/3 of the tripod. Charak and Sutrasthana talks about 3 levels of disease: exogenous or environmental, endogenous or bodily, and psychic or the mind. So these are 3 levels that we have to address in our clinical care and in our research. Charak and Sutrasthana also talks about 3 levels of treatment: the environment level, Daiva Vyapasriya, the body or Yukti Vyapasriya, and the mind or Sattva Vijaya. Again, so much of our research and so much of our clinical practice is on Yukti or the rational body approach, but what happened to the environment, and what happened to the mind, and what happened to the innermost self or Atma. What I'm proposing today is a systems model of Ayurveda and Ayurveda research. And this is consistent with the latest advances in modern medicine, which is now on the frontier of modern medicine, is now something called systems medicine, looking at the network of networks. So in this diagram, from the modern point of view, the world or human physiology starts with the genome on the bottom. Ayurveda starts with Atma or Avyakta, but nevertheless, genome is there as the physical expression, molecules, another network, cells, another network, organs, another network. An individual is certainly a network of networks, but even in this systems perspective, an individual is part of an ecosystem, is part of society, part of a geographic, ecological system. So this range from, in Vedic terms, from larger than the largest to smaller than the smallest, is the range of modern systems medicine, which is in some ways more up to date than much of Ayurveda is today, although it's there in the classics, as we're talking about today. So putting this together into a holistic model for Ayurveda research, we've got 4 domains to consider in causes of ill health and treatment and prevention: the environment, the body, the mind, and Atma. And Atma in modern science is called the unified field, which is a term from physics originally coined by Albert Einstein and now discussed by unified field theorists. For example, string theory talks about one field of unmanifest, if you will, potential strings or fluctuations of intelligence which vibrate at different rates and create mind, body, and the environment. So that's the model that I'm proposing that we research. Let's go through each of them quickly, one by one. The mind in Ayurveda research. Charak in Shariristan says that when the mind is steadily engrossed in the self, a supernatural healing power develops in a person. This state is known as yoga. So yoga is not a separate field of, certainly there are people who are specialists in yoga and literature of yoga, but yoga is described in the Ayurveda texts as a method of Achar Rasayan, as a method of behavioral Rasayan, as a method of Sattva Vijaya, and must be considered for complete health. There's been a lot of research. There have been hundreds or thousands of studies on yoga, and particularly here we're talking about the meditation or samadhi aspect of yoga. And this is just one example of physiological changes in EEG and metabolism during acute meditation practice, in this case, transcendental meditation, traditional Vedic meditation described in Ayurveda. There are many long-term physiological changes of meditation practice. This is just one study showing on the left controls. This is a randomized controlled trial sponsored by the National Institutes of Health, published in the American Heart Association journal called Circulation, Quality and Outcomes, showing a 48% lower rate of death, heart attack, and strokes in individuals who added this meditation practice to their usual medical care. So short-term changes, long-term changes, people live longer, which is the prediction of Ayurveda, the science of long life, isn't it? A brief review, actually I won't even review the research on the body in Ayurveda, herbs, minerals, panchakarma, lifestyle. So much of this conference is devoted to yukti, yapasriya, so we'll just mention it now. The third area, which is largely ignored in Ayurveda research, is the environment. And doesn't Vimanistan talk about how stress in society leads to epidemics? And aren't we experiencing an epidemic or pandemic now as a global crisis? Charak discussed this thousands of years ago and talked about how if stress in society leads to epidemics, then reduction of social stress is necessary for treatment of pandemics and prevention of pandemics and epidemics. Well, what does this mean? How do we deal with collective stress in society, which we're experiencing right now? One method described in the Vedic literature is group practice of meditation, and how group practice of meditation is predicted to have an effect on the group. Not just a group practicing meditation, the few thousand people together, but even the society through this unified field which connects everyone, this field of consciousness or Atma, which connects the individual to society and the whole universe. This is a study published on group practice of meditation during 3 years of intervention compared to baseline period. This is 2002 to 2006 as a baseline. This group practice, which was in Fairfield, Iowa during 2007 to 2010, several thousand people practicing together at one time, twice a day. There were changes in homicide rates in the country, and there are changes in violent crime rate in the country. I believe this is what Charak was discussing. The epidemic of crime and violence can be modified by stress reduction practices that can affect society. Another element of environment largely ignored in Ayurveda research is the physical environment, the architectural environment. And Charles discusses how the physical environment, including where we live and work, affects our health. This is certainly elaborated in the Vedic science of Vastu Vidya, and Sthapatya Ved, but there in seed form in the Samhitas of Ayurveda, discussing the proper orientation of buildings, room placement, measurements, and proportions. This happens to be the building where I work, but there are many all over the world, designed according to principles of healthy architecture in Ayurveda and Vedic literature. And there have been physiological studies on architecture, which I don't have time to review, but it's a very hot area in modern medicine. And contemporary Ayurveda should catch up to that. Next on our considerations of environment in a holistic model for Ayurveda research, there's the area of chronobiology and chronomedicine. Aren't we linked? What is daily routine? What is seasonal routine? But our connection, our relationship to the sun, to the moon, to the stars, and the planets. And in modern medicine, these fields are called chronobiology, chronomedicine. There's this emerging field, which is not so new anymore, described in the past 10 years, called chronoastrobiology. This is there in modern medical research. Probably didn't even read the Ayurvedic Samhitas, but cognizing them and talking about the chrononoosphere, how the individual is connected to the cosmos. And what about the classical descriptions of the effects of the sun on our brain and the moon and all the other major planets and stars? This is there in Vedic literature. This is there in Ayurveda, mantra, mani, and oshauthi. And where are we in this Ayurvedic research, where modern medicine is actually way ahead of contemporary Ayurveda research in this area? In summary, this is a holistic model for Ayurveda research that has recently been revived, is there in the authentic scriptures, and Maharshi has described, and a number of people are evaluating and proposing this council consider this fourfold model: the environment, the body, the mind, their interactions with each other, and their source and connection to the field of Atma, the body's own inner intelligence, the intelligence of nature, which is the specialty of Vedic medicine. And I'm proposing a holistic Ayurveda Academic Health Center, one or more, actually should be everywhere, that conducts research, the specialty of this conference on holistic Ayurveda, that practices holistic Ayurveda and teaches the next generation of healthcare providers this holistic approach to Ayurveda.